Do you ever feel like when you're jamming with someone or playing along to a song that you like, that you tend to gravitate towards one or two positions of the guitar and you find yourself avoiding other areas and you know there's so much more you can do but you just don't know how to access it? Well, I'm going to show you one of my favorite ways to open up the fretboard so that the next time you're in a situation like that, you have a lot more to work with, you can move around, and you can play some new ideas. So we're going to do this by using triads. And if you don't know what a triad is, it's just the three notes that build a chord. So a major chord, for example, is the first, third, and fifth note of a major scale, or we call it 1, 3, and 5. So all you need to build a C major would be a C, E, and G, because that's the first, third, and fifth note of a C major scale. So in this video, we're going to pick a simple chord progression and play through the triads of that chord progression in a certain way. And I'm going to walk you through how to go about this in just one position of the guitar. What you want to do is take this concept and apply it to your other positions too. So if you want to unlock those other positions and look at a bunch of different ways to practice this sort of thing, check out my guitar course. I'll leave the link in the description. It's called Ultimate Chord Mastery. This is just a tiny fraction of what's in there. There's so much in there. It's like every chord related concept that I know. You have closed and open major and minor triads. You have drop 2, drop 3 seventh chords. You have embellishments, tensions, double stops, diminished chords, chord melody, a ton of exercises and etudes to play along with as well. So if you're serious about guitar, check that out. Again, the link's in the description. And also if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe, like, leave a comment so that I can continue making videos like this for you guys. All right, let's get into it. So for our chord progression, I'm gonna pick Tennessee Whiskey, the Chris Stapleton version. It's a very simple progression. It's just A major going to B minor and B minor going back to A major. So just two chords we have to work with here. Let's do this up here on the 5th fret in this area of the guitar here. So anytime you're in any position of the guitar, I think it's super helpful to picture larger chord shapes like big bar chord shapes or caged shapes. If you don't know your caged shapes, there are a bunch of lessons on that online, and I also go through it in my course. But the reason we want to picture bigger shapes is because when we're looking at anything in that area, whether it's triad shapes or arpeggios or scales or whatever it is, if you can't relate that to anything, you're just going to be relying on pure memorization without any sort of visual to help out or any understanding of what you're really doing. And that's going to take forever, and it's not an efficient way to play the guitar. So I'm going to use these chords here to give me a visual of this position. This A bar chord shape, which you may know, and then this B minor bar chord shape. And by the way, these chords are just built from 3 notes, even though we're playing 6 notes here. All those notes in that chord are just repeats of the 1, the 3, and the 5, which is our triad, right? So here you have a 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. That's what's going on in that chord. So let's just go through our A major triad shapes in this position to start. And we're going to do 3 strings at a time. So let's start with the G string, B string, and high E string. If I fret this chord with my left hand and just play the G, B, and high E string, it gives me these 3 notes here. C sharp, E, and A, or the 3, 5, and 1. That's a triad right there. So my root of the chord, my A, is on top on this high E string. So this is a 3, 5, 1 triad here. Technically, you call that a first inversion triad. We don't have to get into the names of this during this lesson. The important thing is just to be able to visualize this here. Our next one is also included already in this chord. On the D, G string, and B string, you have these 3 notes in this bar chord already. So there's your 1, 3, and 5. So the root here, the A, is on the D string now. So now we have 2 triad shapes in this area so far. We got this one and this one here. The next one on the A, D, and G string looks like this. You can play like this or like this. And that's a 5, 1, 3 triad. Your root, or your 1, is in the middle there on the D string. Now the last set of strings here, the E, A, and D strings, if we play the notes from this bar chord here, that's actually not the triad we're looking for. Because what we just played is the root, or the 1, the 5 here, and the 1 again. So this is 1, 5, 1. We're missing a third, right? We're missing a 3. So what I'm going to do is take this root on the low E string, and I'm going to bring that up to a third on the same string. So if you count up 3 notes in a major scale, if you don't know your major scale, don't worry. I'm going to show you what this triad shape looks like. But if you count up 2 whole steps, you could think, there's your third. So now we have 3, 5, 1 like this. So your root on the D string here. And And you'll notice we've kind of shifted up slightly from this chord position here. So just keep that in mind. And even though that's not directly included in this chord here, you can still use this chord as a visual to lock in this triad shape and make some connections between this A triad and this A bar chord. So you'll see that they share these two notes here on the A and D string, right? That's your fifth and your root. So let's play through all those shapes going across now. So you'll see that can kind of create a visual going across the neck like that. If you were to combine all those together in one visual or one shape, it would look like this. I'm going to play them as a single note line. And that actually gives you an arpeggio too. So this is really helpful for visualizing your arpeggios as well. So now we're going to do this with our other chord in the progression, which is B minor. And if you think about this for a second, B is only a whole step up from A. So technically we could move all these shapes just up a whole step, and that would give us our B triad shapes, but we want B minor, right? And the only difference between a major and minor triad is the third. So I mentioned how a major triad is built from the 1, 3, and 5. A minor triad is built from 1 flat, 3, and 5. So if we have a major triad, to turn it into a minor triad, you take the third and you bring it down a half step, down in pitch. To show you an example of this, if I were to move up this A triad up a whole step, what's happening is I'm moving from A major to B major. Now the third in this voicing is right here on the G string, so I need to bring that down a half step if I want to make this a B minor triad. If that's too confusing for now, don't worry, skip it, come back to it. I'm going to show you the B minor shapes going across the same way we did A major. We can use a similar bar chord shape to visualize the B minor triads. I'm going to use this one here. It's just a big B minor bar chord. And the same thing here, these triad shapes are going to be included in that chord, except for the low E string here. So on top we have these three. Then D, G, and B string, you have this. A, D, and G string, you have this. Now here, again, we have a 1, a 5, and a 1 on the E, A, and D string, right? So I gotta bring this 1 on the E string up to a minor third now, a flat third. So that, instead of coming up to a major third, it's gonna come up to a minor third, right there. So this is our final B minor triad shape here. So now for B minor, we have this. So now we're going to go back and forth between A and B minor on each set of strings. So I'll go A, B minor, A on each set of strings here. So it's going to look like this. And the idea is just to get comfortable with these shapes and really find a way to visualize and understand what's going on here. So I like to have some grounding points here. First of all, in the back of my head, throughout all of this, I'm kind of seeing this going on. Even as I'm playing these smaller triad shapes. So when I'm doing that, I'm seeing this. Just because it's good to see the bigger picture here. The other thing that's good to do is if you can pick up on any relationships between those two chords in terms of which notes are moving where and what's the distance of that movement, that's just going to help lock this in even more. So we already talked about B being a whole step up from A, right? So if you can locate your A or your root of all your A chords, then it should help you find your B minor from there. Because if I'm on A here, I know my A is on the high E string. For my B minor, I know that note on the high E string is just going to move up a whole step to B minor, right? And then here, my A is on the D string. I know that's going to move up a whole step to B minor. And then the rest of the chord looks like this. And so on. So you can do this with the other notes too. So it's important to understand, since we're going from a major triad to a minor triad, the only note that's different between a major and a minor triad we talked about is the third. So because the root is moving up a whole step and we're moving up the chord with it, that fifth is also going to move up a whole step, because the fifth is not changing. It's not becoming a flat 5, it's not becoming a sharp 5 or anything like that. So that's going to move up the same distance, it's going to follow the root. The third is the only thing that's moving a slightly different distance. Instead of moving up a full whole step, if we look at the third here, it's only moving up a half step to to the minor third of the B minor, right? If we were going to a major chord, it would be moving up a whole step with the other notes, right? But because we need a minor third in there, that's only going to move up a half step to the minor third of the B minor. So that means if you can see your third in all these triads, that's a good visual to have, right? To see that that third is only moving up a half step, and that'll help you get to your next shape a little bit quicker. Also notice for the purpose of this exercise, I'm just choosing the triads that are closest to the first triad I played. And the purpose of that is just to practice good voice leading. It sounds good when you have a close movement like that. So that's the procedure. What you would want to do is take this through your other positions. So the other positions being this area up here, and also this area either down here or up here. Same thing, just up an octave. Again, all that's in the chorus, and what you could do is put on a backing track of Tennessee Whiskey or play along to the song, and every time the chord is an A, play an A triad. So if I'm doing this in this position, let's say the chord is A here, I'll play an A triad. I can play any one of those A triads. When the chord moves to B minor, you just want to catch that chord switch. So when the chord lands on B minor, I'm just going to play a B minor triad. And then the chord being B minor again, I can play another B minor triad or just chill on that one, whatever I want. Let's say I play this one now. And then we want to move back to A when the chord lands on A. And mess around with where you're jumping, you know, like I said, if you pick the closest ones, the voice leading is going to be pretty good. If you start to jump, you know, if I'm jumping from this A to this B minor, that's a pretty big jump, right? It may sound a little odd in certain situations. So the idea again is to do this in each position here. Now we just did this going across the neck this way. I guess you could say it vertically, right? Another way to do this would be just pick one set of strings and go up the neck horizontally. So I'll show you this on the top three strings, the G, B, and high E string. And again, you can do this on any set of strings, and I go over that in the chorus as well. So we're going to do the same sort of thing, just going back and forth between A and B minor, A and B minor, A and B minor, except now going up this way. And I'm just going to start on my lowest A triad that I can play on that set of strings. And I'll go up to the highest one. I can play either A or B minor. We'll see where we get. So what that looks like on the high set of strings, here's my A triad, 1, 3, 5. The next triad up is going to be a B minor, and I want to find the closest B minor to that A triad. So it looks like this. Then from there, we're going to go to the closest A major. This one should look familiar. Then we go to the closest B minor. Right, we did those in that first exercise. Next one, A major. And then B minor. And then you're back to A major. This is up an octave from where we started. B minor, A major, B minor. Some of you may be able to play one final A major up here, and then you could go back down. And so the goal there is to do that with each set of strings going up the neck horizontally. And if you do this exercise going, you know, across in each position vertically as well as up the neck horizontally this way, and you make those connections, try to really visualize bigger chord shapes, try to get a really strong understanding of this chord progression and what's happening with those triads as you move from one chord to another, you'll be a beast at playing A to B minor all up and down the neck. And it should really open up those positions for you. So now I'm just going to play you a quick clip from my course. It's taken from a longer video that's an example of how I might approach playing through these triads, getting used to them in real time over Tennessee Whiskey. So enjoy it, and again, if you want to really up your guitar playing ability and master these different positions and open up the fretboard, check out the Ultimate Chord Mastery course. If you join, you also get a one-on-one call with me where we can discuss your goals and come up with a game plan to get you where you want to be. That link is in the description. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.